Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Coaching from the Couch. This is your Washington Commanders update, and I'm your host, Candy CWall Waller, checking in as I do all throughout the NFL season and actually all throughout the year as well to give you the latest and greatest information on the Washington Commanders. This is a live Bowie television recording. Everything we say and do here will absolutely be on Bowie TV, which can be found on Verizon Channel 11 and Comcast Xfinity Channel 77. If you are in the Bowie, Maryland, and surrounding areas, you absolutely can get this television channel. So if you are joining live, you are catching this then via my Facebook or through the Bowie TV YouTube channel. You all, if you're on by Facebook, hit that love button. Make sure you share this show with your Washington Commanders loving family and friends. If you are watching via Bowie TV on YouTube, make sure you hit the thumbs up. Make sure you are subscribed, hit the bell so that you can get all of the account notifications. If you are checking out everything on the Bowie TV channel on YouTube or on the television station itself, you know that there is so much that you all can watch and explore. So, absolutely appreciate you all tuning in. This is a live version of the Washington Commanders update. You know, I like to go in depth on the game. Among other things, I see that Mazdak has checked in. I see Dr. Wonderful has checked in. So I'm just naming folks' names based on whatever we see here. And you all know I have to do two things, especially on the live. We always have to say hello to Mama Waller and Pops Waller. You got to say hello to my parents. You got to say what's up to them because they watch. They may not watch live all the time, but they absolutely are tuned in. So I see a couple more diehard Commanders fans. Eric Jessup and Lamar Bland has checked in as well. So I want to make sure I'm acknowledging everybody as they are coming on so you can see your names and everything in lights. So I see Paul, Cliff. I think I made it through and got enough rest to get through and make it to MetLife Stadium and give you all the updates happening at the game. You all know how we start this. If you are returning, you know I love to have you all. Welcome back. If you are new here, I certainly hope you stay a while because we like to have a good time here. This show, and when it's live, it's definitely interactive. I accept comments, questions, try to put as much as I can up on the screen so that you all can see that. We'll also have some clips from after the Commanders win against the Giants. Dan Quinn presser, Jayden Daniels, and then more from Dan Quinn today. We have to start out playing a game that I also love to play. What's your one word? Commanders fans, what is your one word to describe how you felt after the Commanders won against the Giants? Go ahead and let me know how you were feeling. Drop it in the chat. What's your one word? Go ahead and drop that down. Your one word, Troy. I see you joined. Kevin as well. Poetic Randy. I see that you are in the house. Go ahead and drop your one word. I see Mazdax here first. I see great. I see humble. Cool. Next. Winner. Business-like. Great. I'm seeing confident, swept, definitely a good one right there. Relieved from Danielle Hart Moore, and that's my line sister, y'all. Delta Sigma Theta. You know, I got to throw that out there. Satisfied, you all. The Commanders swept the New York Giants. Love button, fire emoji, round of applause if you are indeed excited about the Washington Commanders sweeping the New York Giants. For a split second there, I said, wow, look at Daniel Jones go. Look at him. There he is. In the words of Darrell Lee Owens, who's my Bowie TV colleague and photographer, there he goes, showing up like he wants to be a Pro Bowler. For some reason, it always happens against the Commanders. Why does he have such a good game against the Commanders? It is just mind boggling. But hey, at the end of the day, the Commanders did what needed to be done. I know that some may have felt, even myself, right? And I see Dervin yours saying unbelievable, happy, ecstatic, all of the things, said, wow. They should have been a bit more forceful, if you will, a bit more um domineering, if you will. But I think point blank, period, did the Commanders win the football game? And I think that is a yes. We all know that that is a yes. So that is just is what it is. They got out of there alive with a W. And that is the most important point. That is the most important point. Um, you always have to think about, and I want to go to, and you all may have seen me talk about this a bit, and that is about the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm like, and I guess Kansas City Chiefs, maybe they'll lose tonight. Who knows if they are playing? I think they're playing. Patrick Mahomes not having his best year, right? But it sure does seem like the team does just enough to win the football game. Nothing super impressive, nothing super sexy. It's not all of that. But they do enough to get the W. And I think that, hey, we all know the NFC is kind of tight in some areas. Point blank, period. If the Commanders want to be certain that they make the playoffs, I think they need to win the division. Love button, fire emoji. If, hey, absolutely, they need to be focused on winning the division. Do you need to score 30 plus 40 points in order to do that? No, I don't think so. Team is starting to get a little banged up. Things are starting to transpire. I see questions coming in the chat about trade news. Hey, listen, if it's one thing I'm going to say about this team as they sit at 7-2, this is not the Commanders organization of old. It is not the former name organization. So if they are doing anything, they're going to keep that under wraps. As Dan Quinn shared today, hey, Adam Peters, whatever needs to be done, if they're going to look at how people can fit, they're going to take a look at it, but it's really ultimately their decision, and they bring that to Dan Quinn and the team. They're 7-2. They may say, hey, we need to make a change right now. Who knows? But what I do know, again, as the team sits at 7-2, I think we should go ahead and be okay with trusting whatever the decision is. I think that whatever PTSD from the past regime, whatever PTSD everyone may have, you can let that go now. I think you can let that go as the team sits at 7-2, only being together as an organization a full 9, 10, what is it, going out in 11 months. I think you can let that go. I'm going to keep saying, as the team sits at 7-2, I think they're going to be very careful, very calculated, as they always have been. I think they're going to be smart, as they have been. I think they're going to be very strategic. So if they don't make a move, I would not be upset. If they do make a move, at this point in time, as they sit at 7-2, I think that it would probably be what is best for the organization. I don't think this is something that at 7-2, We have to say, oh my gosh, there's a reason to panic. I posted something last night that I think is of interest, and that is Chris Rodriguez being elevated from the practice squad to the active roster for the third time, which is a maximum of 3 times. We're going to get to the clip and we're going to start going through clips because we want to start going through clips, not just to use our clues, but to continue to learn more about this football team as we're now a little over the halfway part of the season. Because Brian Robinson Jr. is dealing with an injury. I think this is something to watch. I think this is something that is under wraps. I mean, I'm not under wraps because we all know what's going on, but I think that is a storyline that not everyone is following as closely, considering the NFL guidelines on practice squads. And that is you can only do a maximum of 3 times of elevating a player from practice squad to the active roster. The 4th time they must be added to the active roster. Somebody, if Chris Rodriguez is to be added to the active roster, that means somebody losing the roster spot. Where's your notebook? No, you come on here. I said, bring your notebook, bring your pen. Okay. So you need to be paying attention to that, because that is a very important point. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's paying attention to it. But it is a very important point. Okay. Chris Rodriguez, it was his 3rd time. So it's a lot of moving and shaking. It's a lot of things to be thinking about. And it's really a very good problem to have. But it, truth be told, comes down to, well, needing Brian Robinson Jr. for the long haul. Remember early in the season, if you all tuned into my show, I made a comment. I wanted to acknowledge, and this was when it was the week before week 1. And I remember it was Mitch Tischler from Monumental Sports Network asked Coach Quinn about team captains. And Coach Quinn said, oh, we're not going with team captains. We're going to go with game captains. And he said, when we get to the playoffs is when we'll have team captains. And I said, I hope everyone wrote that down. And I hope everybody's taking notes. Because this is a team that is thinking long term. Yes, of course they're thinking week to week. But in thinking long term, if Brian Robinson Jr. is dealing with an injury, he's got something going on, and you need him for the long term, then what do you do? Do you do it week to week? Is he okay to go against the Steelers? Is he okay to go against Philly? Is he okay to go against Dallas? Or do you say, hey, you know what? Put him on short-term IR. Get him to 100%. You got Steelers, Eagles on a short week. Dallas 10 days later. Got a good break there. You got the Titans, and then you got a bye. Bring them back when we close this thing out and let them rock for the playoffs. These are things to be thinking about. These are the stories that aren't being told. These are the underlying things. Because of course they can make a trade. Not real sure what you'd give up. A value is what I'm saying. What you give up, a value. But you got to be smart, and you have to be strategic, and you have to think long term. And I want to get into these press conferences, because every single time while we get into these press conferences, we learn so much, don't we? We learn so much. Now, I'll be you all know me. There's one thing you're always going to get from me is transparency and honesty. The after game press conferences, I was not in. I was having conversations. I was doing my job, learning a bit more about different plays, different situations, was going from there. I was in today's press conference, and we'll get to that. But for right now, let's start to get into these press conferences and let's use our clues together. Why don't we? And check for what we've been hearing and what Dan Quinn is sharing from yesterday to today. Let's go ahead and get started and jump to the first clip.
In the division, and that's that's the mindset. And I want to start off just by recognizing Chris Rodriguez, and didn't know he was going to go until really 90 minutes prior and to the game. And when you get into that spot and you demonstrate you're ready, it goes a long way to your teammates. And there's a lot of unseen work to be ready. You don't get all the reps. Sometimes that comes in the after practice time, the before practice time to be ready. And I thought just a strong finish at the end of the game by him. But I thought the team showed a lot of poise. The 2 minute at the end of the half, I thought was a really big deal, where we have to throw it into the end zone based on time on the shot to Terry. And then the last quarter, I thought, just the catch by OZ going to make a play. Those two plays stuck out to me in particular. We thought we'd have to do a good job with the ball, sort of finish in the positive for us. That was a big deal. And I thought for the offensive line, this is an excellent pass rushing team for our offensive line. Sort of finish, I believe, with no sacks. That's a big deal. They've got some fantastic rushers, and I think I don't know what, you have to go back and check. Maybe there's 5 in the opening game, not the opening game, our first game against them. So we knew that was going to be a point of emphasis.
Listen, yes. One of the things I talked about in the episode prior to this, I put out an episode right before I was making my way up to MetLife Stadium, or to East Rutherford, New Jersey, rather. And the Giants had 5 sacks on Jayden in week 2. This offensive line didn't give up any. 0. Draw a circle. Can you put in the chat? Just put the number, just put 0 in the chat. None, nada, nothing. And as we all know, and we've discussed, this is a very impressive Giants defense. Word up, shout out to the offensive line. We'll talk about them in a little bit as well. I saw some of you all already say it. Chris Rodriguez Jr., bravo, bravo. And we'll get to this in a moment as well. This is what, it's almost the moment when Marcus Mariota came into the Carolina Panthers game, right? When you said the offense didn't skip a beat. They kept on rolling. The game kept moving forward. That's what you want to see. That is what you want to see. And I see all these 0. This is a very important point. This is what we're saying when we start to talk about when you're going to make a trade, make a run, where the holes are, where we thought the holes might be. And then you really take a look back at the film. You really take a look back at the numbers and you say, you know what? Doing pretty good right there. Doing pretty good right there. 7-2. Doing pretty good right there. Shout out to Chris Rodriguez. Shout out to the run game. Shout out to Cliff Kingsbury, because we've seen when Brian Robinson Jr. is out, it's almost like they'll take the run game away. They kept it going. They kept it going. And it was quite good. So I really enjoyed that. You still saw Jayden make heck of a throws. You saw the offense come together as they do. Of course, those 2 touchdowns to Terry. I saw big plays by De'Ami Brown. Shout out to De'Ami Brown. Of course, Olamide Zaccheaus as well. You're still seeing plays being made. And I think that's key. I really think that's key. I'm gonna drop this question. I'm gonna drop this comment in the chat because I do want to acknowledge it, because I'm gonna tell you something. And I've watched this game now. I was at the game, watched it again. Almost embarrassed to tell y'all 3 times, and since being there live. And I'm gonna say something. If I forget about Benjamin St. Jude's, because that was really unfortunate. That wasn't a DPI. That was really unfortunate. But it's easy to call DPIs on them at this point. So It was really unfortunate, but we're going to move on. And again, you saw the offense still be productive. The Commanders are experiencing a good problem to have. When your key players are out, you still down 2 losses. That's it. You're still able to be productive. You're still able to come away with the win. Um, that's not something that this fan base, and I can tell you from a media perspective, at least the 7, 8 years I've been there, has been able to watch. When somebody is out, you're gonna panic. And it has not been that case just yet. So let's move on. Let's continue to go through the clips. Up next, let's check this one out.
After last week's red zone troubles and the first time played the Giants, settling for a lot of field goals, were you pleased with kind of the way you guys converted in the first half in particular there?
Yeah, I thought, getting a chance to go down, we thought in the run game we'd really have to have an impact. And the time of possession really seemed out of whack. I don't know what the numbers were. I haven't looked at it, but they had some long drives. And so getting down into the red zone, when these would be 4-down moments to go to see if we converted. So to have the scores there was big. Sometimes when it's, an 8-point game or in a field goal spot, to say you take the field goal in that spot to go ahead. So we were thinking a lot on the game management side, and even at the end, where, it was close to get, once we got the first down, that was a way to kneel it out. But I thought to close the game in that way, that was a big deal.
If you all are just tuning in, this is from the Coaching from the Couch series, the Washington Commanders Update. I'm your host, Candy CWall Waller. This is Bowie Television. This is a live recording. I'm sharing exclusive insights from the Commanders sweeping the New York Giants this season. You all make sure you are subscribed to Bowie TV. Make sure if you're watching on Facebook, you hit the love button. Make sure you're sharing the show. Trying to take all of your live comments, questions, commentary, talking through all of the different clips. Back to this clip. Last week, saw the red zone issues. This week, you saw it cleaned up. You all know how I roll now. Whatever was the issue last week, please don't let us have to watch and sit through that again this week. And you have to love the fact that there's a coaching staff that holds themselves accountable to say, hey, this is what we didn't do well last week. Let's get this cleaned up. Have to be super appreciative for at the top of the game, the Commanders defense. Now, there's definitely some blunders on defense. Now, we're going to get to that at some point. All right. And I'm sure defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr. cannot wait to get to that. But you saw the Commanders get to Daniel Jones, force the turnover, get the ball back to the offense, and the offense convert for a touchdown. Need to see more of that. Need to see more of creating those turnovers, getting the ball back to the offense so they can move it down the field and into the red zone. It wasn't much of red zone troubles this past week. Saw a lot of that. You have to be appreciative for all of the times you've seen the team make an improvement from week to week. Love button fire emoji. If you can recall at least 2 to 3 times at this point where you've seen an issue from last week or the previous week get cleaned up the next week. I think that is impeccable, quite frankly. So let's just see how the rest of this goes. Steelers, Eagles, Dallas coming up. We're going to talk a bit about that. But listen, you all, there's something that's got to be said for the fact that they're making these adjustments week to week. Sometimes you're seeing them make adjustments in game, and it's been a long time since we've all watched this team make adjustments in the game. So, with that being said, let's move on to the next clip, shall we?
Can you step back a minute and just take a look at where you are now in the standings and some perspective as to where this team has come?
What I had told the team on, I don't know if it was Friday or Saturday, we need to demonstrate the improvement that we've made. And I hope the team from week 9 would, knock the hell out of the team from week 2 and showing that demonstrated improvement. And we've got to prove that, that we have gotten better in a lot of areas. And that improvement doesn't stop here. I said, I'm hopeful 2 months from now, we'll look back and say the team 2 months from now can really, if they had to line up against this team, would go after them. And so I think the relentless nature of improvement and going for it is a big deal. There's a lot of guys who are in that pocket to go. So I try not to think too far down the line, but to stay in this pocket of getting better and finding the things to work on to do that. And we've got a big crew of people who are ready to do that. And so the connection to the team is a really big deal. And I think that's the best part of our team is this group. They battle hard for one another, and that's a big deal.
Before we move on, I absolutely want to address this question here. Should Quinn have challenged the line of game catch on the 4th down? Yes. That is my short answer. So that's just my short answer. But at any rate, I think others, are agreeing with me as well. Yes, because he did not get that 4th and 2. Like I said, I was there in person, and then I watched the game 3 times. And so that was and today that was it on my list of questions? Absolutely. I always come to the press conferences with a list of questions, and depending on the vibe, depending on what's going on, depending on how I want to go and how I want to talk to you all on this live recording for Bowie TV is how I decide to go when I use my 2 questions. So we'll get to those in a moment. But from that previous clip, the improvement. Now, do I think that the Commanders knocked the hell out of the New York Giants? No, I don't. No, I don't think they knocked the hell out of them. No, because I still think that Daniel Jones was a lot of mobile. He was doing what he normally does to the Commanders, which was a little upsetting. But they were able to get the win. But he was still very active. And the run game was starting to get active. And then once you saw the run game kind of go away, you saw the ball starting to get to Malik Neighbors and, starting to get the ball around. They were getting a bit more active than I wanted to see there in the second half, especially in the 4th quarter once it started getting late. But they came away with the win, and that's a great thing. But, it's not like it gets harder. Now, once Dan Quinn, and here you go with me using my clues, I'm like, wait a minute, in 2 months, what's in 2 months? You want to show improvement and make sure, 2 months from now, things that you were doing now, you have improved upon in 2 months. I'm like, well, 2 months is January. So you all do think you're going to be playing in January? Oh, okay. All right. Okay. I'm following. I'm using my clues. Hashtag use your clues. Drop it in the chat if you are using your clues as well. And do that while we move on to the next clip.
Coach, can you talk about Austin Eckler stepping up and still doing his special teams role? How
Yes.
cool that was today?
Yeah, that was big because we didn't know, from Brian's standpoint, that Chris, wouldn't go until before the game. But that wasn't going to really change Austin's role on the return side of things. If they gave us a shot, we thought we'd go, and they did give us one shot at it. I think the other ones may have been touchbacks. But his ability, his quickness, the 3rd down conversion, he's a true competitor in every sense, Austin is. And so the dual threat of the run, the receiving out of the backfield, that's a big deal. And I thought the running backs, all 3 of them in particular, I thought that group was really highlighted today and really featured, and they absolutely delivered.
Do you all remember, does anyone remember back during training camp? Don't let me be the only one holding these receipts. But does anybody remember back during training camp? That is one of the questions I asked Cliff Kingsbury. Talk to me about your running back room. Let's talk about it. Because you got some good things going on back there. But tell me in your words, with your running back room. And he just lit up talking about the running back room. And while Brian Robinson Jr. is absolutely needed on this offense, and I'm sure there's many other teams that would love to have him, a good problem to have. It doesn't mean you don't need B-Rob. You absolutely need B-Rob. But you also need depth. and your running game need not miss a beat when your number one is out. And I was super excited and very happy and delighted to say, this is what everybody has been talking about. This running back room is good. Very, very good. And I was really elated for Chris Rodriguez Jr. We're going to get into a clip later where Coach Quinn talks a bit more about how he's learned a lot from Jeremy McNichols, right? And it's just, and oh yeah, hey, shout out to Austin Eckler. This is somebody that people were like, oh, this dude is washed up. That was one of the things that Cliff Kingsbury shared with me as well in that same presser. You know, there's a narrative that he's missed a beat. It's the furthest thing from the truth. You all saw it. You all were watching the same thing I was. I was there. Watched the game 3 times. Watched it once last night when I got back. That was a little crazy, but I watched it last night because I had so much going on in my head. I said I need to see something. Then I watched it again twice today, and when the all 22 comes out, I'm going to watch that as well. You know, that's just me being honest with you all. Okay, so that was some good football being played. I've been saying it since the Ravens game. I said, you know what? I think I may have told you all in the Ravens game. I turned around and I looked at Doug Williams and Martin Mayhew, and I said, we watching some good football. They were like, yes, we are, Candy. Good. Very good. Very, very good. Thank you. Yes. So I was elated for that whole group because they're working super hard and they're super talented, and everybody got a chance to see that. Very, very good thing. Very good thing. Let's move on to the next clip. I have some of your favorite commander, Jayden Daniels, who I'd like to say, if you haven't already seen and heard, Jayden Daniels and Bobby Wagner at the Wizards Golden State game. And hey, I would like to know, how is it that they're there and I'm not? Well, because I have a show. I have to do a show. That's why I've answered my own question live on the air. How about that? Very good. But hey, everybody deserves a break. Everybody. So let's go on to this next clip.
The way that last week ended, what's your coaching staff doing to get you guys to turn it around and refocus in a heartbeat?
I mean, they just preach, new week. But other than that, I mean, we got a great veteran presence in the locker room with guys that had the highest highs and the lowest lows. So leading all those guys to, and just the locker room, the message I think we all kind of get is like, hey, what happened last week happened last week. You know, we got a whole new week to go.
Listen, I really appreciated that question. I'm writing figured out another clue, and I had to write it while I was on here. So I think it's important, and it came up again today in Dan Quinn's presser. I think it's really important to go back to the point of the veteran presence in the room. Yes, highs. We don't watch the Hail Mary and at least 28 different angles, 57 different languages. We've seen it all at this point, right? I told you all, they had all moved on. They had all moved on. The Hail Mary they weren't moved on. And so I always ever so appreciate Jayden's response. And it's just the veteran presence in the room. Hey, it's time to move on. They've experienced the highs of the highs. Like I said, Jayden Daniels spends a lot of time with Bobby Wagner as well as everyone else. They all spend a lot of time together. So let me be real clear on that. Tonight, those are just the two commanders who are at the game, of course, just in terms of that. But there's veteran presence all over the room. And then with the coaching staff, hey, yeah, the Hail Mary was beautiful. But those red zone issues, that's got to get fixed, right? Still some blunders there that need to be corrected. And you can't live off of a Hail Mary in week 8. There's so much more football to be played. So I just appreciated that very real response because I saw it in real life. Like it was right back to work. Nobody was tripping. You know, it was great, but it really was right back to work. So with that being said, let's move on to the next clip.
Jayden, the 7-2 start is the best start for the franchise since 1996. Are you able to take a step back and like acknowledge how important this start is for this team, or are you just in the moment?
Got to live in the moment. Hey, you know, this could be all good. You know, we got a game next week, but I mean, I'm just happy for the fan base that they could be something proud of in the product that we're putting out on the field.
I am too, Jayden. I'm very happy for the fan base. Drop in the chat 1996. Now, don't tell me how old you were in 1996. This is none of my business, okay? But go ahead and say, what were you doing in 1996? Maybe that's probably none of my business either. But in 1996, 1996, do y'all got that? I'm like cracking up. Jayden wasn't even born in 1996, I don't think. So, listen, and I think I've already been talking to some of you about this next game coming up, and we're going to go through some more clips. Okay? We're going to go through some more clips. But I'm sure Commanders fans will be in the building for the Steelers game. Now, there's a strong possibility that a lot of the tickets for this game was sold early. So, but I don't know. I'm writing my notes. Speaking of my notes, hold on. I had posted, this is what I want to show you all. So, like, we get little cool stuff like this now from the team. Give me this nice notebook. A nice notebook. They gave me a charger. Anyway, 1996. And I agree. It was a good year. I was very young, but, you know, I was alive to experience it. Okay, so let's move on to the next clip.
There was a couple of passes in the second half, the one across to Eckler and the one to OZ, where it's a long cross and it takes a while to develop. How much easier is that throw for you when you haven't been touched all day?
I think to your point, I think it'll be kind of different. You know, obviously those guys, the defensive line, those guys, the rush guys, they get kind of frustrated that they can't get to the quarterback getting the ball out. And it helps out with our O-line, man, our tackles. Obviously, those guys that get paid a lot of money. Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, those guys are hell of players. So be able to not get sacked by those guys, kudos to my O-line.
Listen, the O-line was a place of concern. And how about it? Fire emoji, love button, if you are really super impressed by this offensive line. And I think I saw something while you all are sharing your love for the Commanders offensive line and you are impressed by them. I'm pretty certain, I guess it's coming out about the interest in Emmanuel Forbes, I think, or conversations around that. And I would just like to say that, you know, what I shared in my Use the Clues Commander something to consider last night. What I said was, I think everyone should take a look at the active roster and who didn't take any reps yesterday. That's something to consider in terms of what could be happening at the trade deadline. Just go look at the roster and go look at the snap count, because then that way I don't have to tell you all what you can already know and find out for yourself. That's a beauty of watching my show and getting my content, is I'm going to tell you how to use your clues. Go look at the active roster and go look at the snap counts, and then you'll see who didn't take any snaps yesterday. And then you can potentially see who just may be on the market that wasn't injured. Let me be very clear about that. Hashtag use your clues. Go ahead and drop that use your clues in the chat. Anyway, let's move on to the next clip. Did I show 3 Jordan? Jayden Daniels clips? I think I did. So let's move on to some Dan Quinn presser clips, shall we? Let's go on and move on to Dan Quinn's presser from today. And let's dissect some of what he shared with the media today.
Yeah, it's good to see you guys. As I thought, kind of coming up here today and visiting a little bit, measuring growth as a football team, it isn't that easy. Not like when we were kids and you could make a line on the wall, measure it again, you got taller, you were fired up. But as a team, I think division games help on that because it does give you some spots for measurement. And then, from our team now to our team, 7 or 8 weeks ago, I'll give you 2 areas that I thought were growing. I thought one of them is the turnover margin and a mindfulness for the ball and taking care of it, and then defensively having the ability to knock it out and go. So I thought, we're growing in that space. And the second spot that I thought we're growing is these winning time moments, a 2-minute and a 4-minute. So I thought in yesterday's game, the 2-minute at the end of the half specifically, De'Ami Brown, converting a long 3rd down, and then maybe 10 or 11 seconds, the ball to Terry at the end of the half with no timeouts. And that scenario has to be either, in the end zone or out of bounds. And then being able to close out the game and not give the ball back to New York at the end. So those are some moments from here to here. And that's usually what I'm looking for, to find ways that how we're going to grow. And a lot of that honestly comes back to Tell the Truth Monday and learning our lessons, how they apply to us. And no question about it, we're grateful for the wins, but we're not ever blinded by them. Making sure there's plenty of stuff to get better at and dig in and go for it again. And we'll certainly do that, each and every time. Where we're growing, how we're going to improve, and we've got to stay on this mark and right in that pocket.
So drop in the chat anything that resonated with you from what head coach Dan Quinn is sharing in his presser. I got a few more clips. Definitely drop in the chat any more questions you have about what Coach Quinn is sharing in these clips. Of course, in these clips, I also have my questions from today, but I'm going to keep going through them. And of course, as you drop any questions in the chat, I will absolutely try to respond to as many as I possibly can. Here's the next clip.
Hi, Dan. Jeremy Chin has played really well over these last couple of games. What has been working so well with him, and why does he fit so well, I guess, with this group and this game?
Yeah, I really feel the confidence has been growing, Nikki. I think you've absolutely nailed it. I love seeing in-game the communication with he and with Quinn, what they're seeing and how they're able to express that to one another. That's a big deal. He's worked really hard on the man-to-man side of things, whether that's pre-practice with Tommy Donatello or post-practice. You see the work that he puts into that spot. But I thought the open field tackle on the screen that came all the way back and the man-to-man on the tight end, those were some plays that really stood out to me. And I thought yesterday's game was probably his best so far.
And then you have a lot of guys who have sort of revived their careers here with Eckler. I mean, Chin is playing more like he did a few years ago. Ertz is playing well. What does that say about the team and what these guys are doing now with this group?
I really think it speaks to the players about their willingness to kind of go to that space to get better and dig in for it. And one of the things from the coaching side here, we want to make sure we can feature the players of the things they do best and then find those roles of how we do that. And it does take us learning who the player is and for them to so clearly demonstrate, the practice reps and in games that they express who they are, makes it easier for the coaches also to know how to feature them as well.
So as we're going, and we mentioned this earlier, right, about and based on what Jayden shared in his after game presser about the veteran presence in the room. I mean, just in that clip, right, I'm just jotting down names. And I'm not, as much as I'm around these guys, right, it's like you still lose some names along the way. But between, and this just popped up in my head, right, Alameda, Zacchaeus, right? We're talking about free agents, those who were signed, who came in. So we know Alameda, Zacchaeus, Jeremy Chin, who did I write down? Austin Eckler, Zach Ertz, we know Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu, Austin Seibert, Tyler Ott, Tyler Biage, Dorrance, Dante. The list just goes on and on of the free agent signings or the veterans that were brought in. Jalen Holmes here recently, a few others, and the emphasis on allowing them to do what they do best. Yes, absolutely. Noah Brown. Allowing them to do and be who they are and what they do best. That's not even a notion that we're all used to covering, watching, critiquing, reviewing, whatever from this organization. This is not okay, you come here and then we turn you into who we think you should be or how we think you should play. It is truly emphasizing their strengths and putting that on there so they can be successful. I think that is remarkable. And you're seeing guys get better every week. Now, Jeremy Chin was one that I was just like it was starting to had kind of grow on me a bit. But the thing of it is, he's getting better every single week. He's already been a game captain twice. Quan Martin, luckily, right? We're seeing somebody who was on the previous roster really blossom with this coaching staff. And he is as humble. All these guys, super humble, super kind, super cool. But I call them some wild animals when they get out there on the field sometimes. I'm like, what in the world just happens to them when they get out there? But that's them on the field. On the field, amazing, right? I mean, they're amazing on too, but it's just, it's a different mindset, and they're all on the same page and wanting to play for one another. And so I have another clip emphasizing that point. And here's why. We can all get wrapped up in trade deadlines. We can all get wrapped up in what's going to happen, because I absolutely am keeping my eyes on that roster spot and what's going to happen with Chris Rodriguez, really wanting to understand more about Brian Robinson Jr., how he's doing, the longevity, and how the team is thinking when they need to insert him, what's going to make most sense for his health. And fire emoji, heart emoji if you heard Dan Quinn's presser today, because I did ask about his conversation with Brian Robinson yesterday. There's definitely some clues in there you all want to be paying attention to, because these are all very important points. But let's not miss the point, the very important point, that this team has not been 7-2 since 1900. First of all, let me just say it the correct way, I feel like. 1,996. They haven't even nothing of the sort since the 1900s. Okay. Now, absolutely, you have to know that Adam Peters is going to be doing everything to get better. Of course. Because of course. And that's something I share with you all very early on in this new journey with this new team, is you all better check and read these resumes. Because these people aren't here to play. They're not here to play. Now, I don't mind let me go ahead and address this. I only predicted 7 wins this season. And I said when they get to 7, I'm going to say something and say, hey, this was it for me. That's at 7. 7, temper your expectations. And I'm still going to tell you temper your expectations, because then you can be pleasantly surprised, which is something else that I've been talking about. So they're at 7. They're there. And when they get to 8, I'm just going to be like, wow, well, you look at that. Week 9, and they're at 7. So when they get to 8, I can come on here and say, that was all right. This has been an all right experience so far. Let's go on to the next clip. I hope I'm not skipping clips here. Let's move on to the next clip. There's still several, and my questions are still to come. So check out this next one.
Hey, Dan, what did you see from the run defense on tape, and how can you guys improve in that area?
Yeah, I thought number one, I thought the quarterback runs of him being able to circle the defense, Sam, was a big deal. And one of them may have been a 24 yards or significant explosive run. And then past that, I didn't feel like the tackling was off base, but the explosive ones are the ones that can really change the course of the game. And we had one against Chicago, and then the explosive run from yesterday. And you don't get to say, except for this and this, it was on point. So I think more than anything, making sure whatever the look is, whatever the run is, that you're able to nail that piece down. And so that's where I thought, we missed the mark in this game.
If you all are just tuning in, this is from the Coaching from the Couch series, the Washington Commanders update. I'm your host, Candy CWall Waller. This is a live Bowie television recording. Everything we say and do here will be on the television channel. If you are watching through Facebook or YouTube, I hope you all are subscribed to the YouTube channel. I hope you all get the television channel. I'm sharing exclusive insights from week 9. Even though Daniel Jones was starting to look like a track star out there, the Commanders came away with the win and the ultimate sweep of the New York Giants this year. Dan Quinn asked about the run defense and needing to improve that because, as someone noted in the comments, that has been a challenge for sure. So far, those explosive plays, it's almost like you can almost bet that one is going to happen. And here's the thing. One day, somebody's going to really make them pay for it. And I just really hope it's not Saquon Barkley. Right? Ugh. I mean, I don't think there was anyone more frustrated than me when Saquon Barkley left the New York Giants just to go to the Philadelphia Eagles. Oh, I mean, if you were more frustrated than me, if you think you were more frustrated than me, drop that in the chat and say you were extremely frustrated about that news. What is he still doing in the division? But at any rate, let's move on to the next clip, shall we?
Hi, Dan. Over the last several weeks, the players and their answers to a lot of our questions, the word brotherhood comes up almost all the time. You use the word brotherhood, and I'm curious because it's a word, but there's a lot of layers to that word brotherhood. Can you kind of expand on that? What is brotherhood in the Commanders' locker room?
Yeah, it would have to be, Scott, that the ability to play for something bigger than yourself and knowing that your skills can get you to a certain level. But there's a whole nother spot to tap into if you're doing it for the guy who's right next to you. And a lot of people would say, well, that's not possible in pro ball. And I would tend to disagree with them, and all the connection that can happen. It's really important, but you have to also live that every day. It's not something that just comes up on a Sunday. It's all the way through the week, the practicing, the communication. And there's a lot of examples that I see, Scott, during the week. I saw it as an example this week with Chris Rodriguez following an example of J-Mac. And he's helped him get better in his preparation, and that's his way of paying it forward to the next one. That's brotherhood. Chris was ready to step in and play over the last month. He's been preparing. He saw an example of what that looked like from a teammate and kept him going into that space. So there's small examples like that that feed into it, and I see random acts of brotherhood on a regular basis here, but you do have to watch for it. You have to acknowledge it and make sure when those moments happen that you talk about it.
Now, Commanders fans, I want you all to be honest. Be very honest on this Bowie TV moment. When have you ever heard that description of brotherhood shared in that way regarding this football team? This one. And it be true. And give it an example. See, I'm going to go back to this what Chris Rodriguez did. I'm going to go back to the example that Dan Quinn shared. I'm going to go back to, like I said, remember the Carolina Panthers game? Was it Carolina Panthers? Well, who would they even play? This is sad. All the weeks are running together. When Jayden went out, was it the Panthers? when Jayden went out and Marcus Mariota came in. That is insane. Anyway, you know what I mean? And the offense just kept going. Didn't miss a beat. And if we go back to using our clues to that game, whichever game it may be, because for some reason right now I don't remember, Marcus Mariota said the game plan didn't change. You got 4 quarterbacks that all knows the game plan, that all can do very similar things. We all do. That gave you your clue that the other position groups are operating in the same way. This is why you saw so many similarities at times from Austin to Jeremy to C-Rod to what you even may have seen in a Brian Robinson Jr. Because they didn't go away from the run game like you've seen in the past when he had to go out. Are we all using our clues and seeing the connection? Because now you're seeing these things happen from position group to position group. Uh-oh. Now that clue might have just went over a whole lot of people's head, and I hope it didn't. I hope you caught it. Now, with that being said, let's jump to my questions, and then you all drop some of your questions in the chat as well, and then we'll wrap up.
Hi, Coach. Could you talk a little bit on the offensive line? Have they surprised you at this point, 9 games in, of how they're just clicking and gelling together?
I'm not going to use surprised. I may shake my head with a smile and say that's it, because I've loved the work ethic and the connection at that position, their ability to communicate to one another. If you had been on the sideline and you could have heard Allegretti, the way he's communicating to his left to Coleman and to his right to Biotic, he brings that kind of energy and communication. You can't help but get better playing next to somebody like that. So we make it challenging run game, pass protection, play passes. So there's a lot on the guys, and then throw a tempo and an upspeed fashion to that. They're tough, they're competitive, they really can finish. So to see them really kind of raising their level together, Donna, I think that's what makes a good offensive line good. It's not one player, but when you're good as a group. And that kind of toughness and finish that they're displaying, it's a big deal, because like yesterday, to leave a game against the team that's leading in sacks and have good protection, and I thought it was smart game plan by Cliff and the guys, knowing when to chip and why to do that based on who the opponent is. It's not always easy to do that, but to see those guys staying connected and doing it, that was cool.
This is how y'all know I'm all over the place. Those were Donna's questions. Still great, still great, still great, and still much love. Tag Donna and let her know I'm talking about her. I thought those were my questions next in the queue. They were hers. So mine must be last. Okay, fine. It's a lot going on, but anyway, again, the offensive line, there were 2 position groups that I shared with you all before the season that I was so concerned about, and that was the cornerbacks and the O-line. I was so confused. I was so concerned at one point. I think it was after the Jets joint practice, but I was just like, don't even put Jayden back there. Just forget it. Give them some time until they can work out these kinks on O-line and put Marcus Mariota back there. But they have just been a pleasant surprise. They have just been wow. And it goes all the way back. I'm going to continue to talk about this in a previous episode, way back in OTAs, when I said Tyler Biage mentioned them having to operate 5 as 1. If you remember me sharing that clip and talking to you all about this months ago, drop it in the chat. I remember. Fire emoji. Let me know, because I really talked about that and saying, I want to see how this shows up on the field. Because if he's serious, and let's remember, right? Bobby Johnson was with the New York Giants. He did not, it was not a good run for him there. They were not happy with Bobby Johnson, right? Comes here thriving. And O-line coach, this is what I'm talking about. And so these are very important points of what it may not have looked great somewhere else, but maybe they just wasn't the right fit, even from a coaching perspective and a player perspective. Culture and fit matters. Approach matters. Maybe some places just aren't good for you. Maybe some people just aren't good for you. You in the right place. Timing is everything. It can all really work out because that 5 is one thing. You can see it. I just would never forget that. I just would never forget it because I would always say, yeah, now he talking like how a center's supposed to talk like that. Now that's some center language right there. But let me see how it shows up. So far, very, very impressed. Now, let's see if these are my questions, you all. Let's see. Because at this point, I'm like, well, what's in the queue? Guess we'll find out now if these are, in fact, my questions. If you have any questions, please don't be shy. Drop them in the chat. I will try to answer as many as I possibly can. I promise.
Hey there. Good afternoon, Coach. I know it can never be easy to have conversations, probably like the one you had yesterday with Brian Robinson Jr., when you all determined that he would be inactive for the game. So kind of what goes into your preparation in having that conversation with the player?
You're right, Candy, and it's not easy. And kind of the phrase I told him yesterday, we're going to choose the more difficult right over the easier wrong. And there's a lot of season for him to play. And when you have an injury, to your lower body as a running back, that's the locomotive, man, whether it's calf or quads or hamstrings or glute, like that's what makes you unique. And if you're feeling that signal that's just not coming back as quickly as we thought it would, then that's the more difficult right. And we didn't want to put him into a space that he could be vulnerable to get it, injured. And we thought if that's the smart play here, is even though it's not the easy one.
And right now the team is sitting at 7-2, and with that comes a world-class coaching staff is how the coaching staff has been phrased since everyone came together earlier this calendar year. So what can you say about your coaching staff and what they've done to work together to get the team to 7-2?
Yeah, and I think I'll speak back to maybe a word that Scott had just brought up. It's brotherhood, and there's a space for that too, to be the best functioning staff that we can, and that's a huge goal to take on. So can we be the best functioning staff in the NFL? There has a lot of support and a lot of communication with one another. And just like in a locker room with a team, a lot of alphas who have a lot of opinion, well, it's no different on a coaching staff. And so finding that narrative together, doing what's best for the team, and those are things that we talk about. If we're looking from the players, then that also we have to be that. And these players are like, they get it. And they've been BS'd a lot, Candy, through their careers by coming up, high school, recruiting, et cetera. So, like, they have a pretty good BS filter, and they know when somebody's not real and honest. And if you can make players better, that's a really powerful thing. And that is right at the core of what we do as a coaching staff, to say, can Dan Quinn or Cliff Kingsbury or Joe Witt or Larry Izzo, Brian Johnson, can they make me better? And it takes time to prove that, and earn trust with one another. But that's what I'm looking for from that group, to never back off of that. And the coaches are a very big piece to this connection.
Thanks, Coach.
All right. Have a good day.
I got a good BS filter too. My BS filter is pretty good, if I must say so myself. And I would like to say they're not BSing. And those that know me know I'm big on coaching. You all may recognize I ask a lot of questions about coaches, because I'm big on accountability, and I'm big on, and I'm laughing at this comment. This is how you show big. Hey, keep your receipts. I told you, if I was ever wrong, I would love to be wrong about them only winning 7 games. And I'm going to tell you why. And I've said this before. And you all are about to get a very real and transparent and vulnerable moment from me. As glorious and as glorifying as you all think this life is, it has been absolutely miserable covering this team and committing to this purpose and this journey, watching all the crap that has gone on with this franchise. And it's a little bit of opinion in there and it's a little bit of fact in there, right? But let me tell you, for the first time since I have been in this business, I have enjoyed my job. And that's real. That is real. The commitment to the purpose is way better and bigger than enjoying watching the football game. Okay? And I don't think people understand that. This is how I know they're not BSing. And it's not just so much about them winning. It is about because they don't talk and coach speak. I think that, like, I remember even myself having a lot of just concerns, not sure about Dan Quinn. Again, pull the receipts. I'll pull them for you. He knows. This is why we all build relationships the way that we do, right? Completely wrong about Dan Quinn. And I remember when I pulled the NFLPA survey and said, I might be wrong about Dan Quinn, you all. You all may remember me saying this. I might be wrong about Dan Quinn because, hey, listen, the players have spoken, and Dan Quinn is in the top 3 of coaches that players said that they would play for. Adam Peters was on to something. He knew what he was doing. The calls, the people wanting to come here. That's true. It's true. For real. So listen, accountability. People had questions about Cliff Kingsbury. They had questions about Joe Witt. They second guessing everything. And you want to know why? Because it has been 30 years of BS. So Coach Quinn, thank you, Coach Quinn, for the transparency and the honesty. Because they know what it is. But it is indeed a new day. And it starts with just somebody and people with a novel concept of saying something and actually doing what you said you were going to do. You say something and the words and the actions match. It's really that simple. You have a goal and a vision for how you want your organization to operate and to be, and you go out and you get those individuals that follow and map that vision and that goal. It's really that simple. And those that don't match that, you get them out. It is really that simple. But I had to tell people all the time, you might think this is glorious. And I even think somebody on the show, Robbie Gross, said he's fascinated by how things have happened. This is a lot of work to be miserable, but then be so focused on the purpose and why you're really doing it. Because at the end of the day, why I'm doing it wasn't to enjoy watching football. It was to give you all another perspective from a Black woman. That's what it was. And to be a woman that was an active contributor to the sports conversation. This ain't easy, and it's far from glamorous most days of the week. So I'm like, he not BSing. And because we all have these conversations offline, I knew he knew what I was asking him. He knew what I was asking him. Because people lie right there in your face and go and do something else. So 7-2. 7-2. 7-2. 7-2. I enjoy going to work. I can see why they enjoy going to work. It's very real. I even showed y'all my little notebook. This notebook meant a lot to me. I was like, oh, y'all gave me a notebook. Oh, everybody's getting notebooks. This is nice. It's the little things that mean a lot. When I shared a couple weeks ago the improvements that they're doing for players Who gets an F- in a survey? Come on. Huh? But people still show up and watch and buy paraphernalia, and the organization's got a whole F-. In 9 months, you can just experience a team and an organization just does what they say they're going to do. What a novel concept. So you all got a whole lot of truth from me tonight. Because the reason why I'm not really big on this trade deadline stuff is because whatever they decide to do, okay, I'm going to trust. They know what they're doing. Because 7-2, haven't seen that since the 1900s. So we just gonna sit back and we gonna watch. And it's rightfully so to sit back and watch because it's all new. So you all got some real truth from me off of that last thing that I asked Coach Quinn, because it's very, 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 very important for the fan base to know these things. And no, it's not just coach speak. When he's talking, any of the coaches, if you've watched any of the media scrums, if you listen to the coordinators, it's not coach speak. And you know it's not coach speak because you watch the game on Sundays. And if you can point directly back to these press conferences and you can absolutely say, they just talked about that. And oh my God, they fixed it. Novel concept. I could talk to you all about this stuff for hours, but I'm not. You want to know why? Because I have a meeting and I have to do another show. But you all listen. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for coming to the live. Thank you for listening to some of my truth because it needed to be said. And there's a lot more that need to be said, but I'm going to just make sure you all keep coming back in case I have to drop some more very real knowledge for you all. Thank you all for watching my content. And many of you reach out to me and compliment me on my questions. And please understand and know that that does not go over my head. I really appreciate that you all listen and that you all are paying attention and that you all are aware that I take very care and consideration in the questions and the time that I have with these coaches and these players. It does mean a lot to me to make sure I'm reporting and accurate and operating with integrity as well, for all parties involved. So thank you all for all that you do. And trust me, the players and the staff do feed off you all's energy. The terrible towels will be in the building on Sunday, but I certainly believe that the Commanders fans, you all are going to show up too, because you all have been doing a phenomenal job in showing up and raising all kinds of hell up in Northwest Stadium. You all listen. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We're just at week 9 now, going into week 10. So we got some more season to go. We got some more season to go, you all. And I hope you all stick with Bowie TV and go through it with us. All right. So you all stay safe. And I will be talking to you all again soon.